This is RFD Today, a daily look at the key topics impacting rural Illinois. If you live in Illinois, we examine the issues impacting you, your income, and your community. Here's your host for today's program, Eloy Shonke.
Hey, good Monday to you, Illinois. Thanks for joining us for this adventure in broadcasting on the 8th of April. And, well, we certainly saw some more wet weather over the weekend, was following a couple of cases of possibility of severe weather as well. Some intense storms making their way through parts of the state. And looking at the forecast for what's to come to the Dakotas and Nebraska, northern Iowa, and Minnesota in the next couple of days, a lot of precipitation is making its way either in the form of rain or snow. And a lot of that eventually is going to come down the river as well. So this is certainly going to be something to watch through the month of April. On the program today, we'll visit with Jack Tichenor, the host of Illinois Lawmakers, and we'll center our discussions around a couple of topics. Primarily how are we going to spend the money? Hopefully will there be enough to go around for that matter. But primarily what we'll talk about includes capital bill, which could also get into motor fuel tax, and we'll talk about several other issues as well, including graduated income tax proposals and what is to come with that, and also just in general the mood about spending amongst folks in Illinois. All that to come on a Monday, RFD Today. But hey, first, it's the second Monday in April, and we bring back our Crop Watcher reports, which we'll do each Monday for the next several months. This first 2019 Crop Watcher report takes us to Shelby County. Doug Uphoff is standing by. And, what'd you get over the weekend? How wet are you?
We've had 7.7 inches in the last month and about 0.7 in the last week.
Oh, man. So, fully soaked, fully saturated then?
The tile are running.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah, that's all right, though. It'll quit raining one of these days, and we'll want it to rain again.
Yeah, the problem when it stops raining is that sometimes it really stops raining, though.
Yeah, that's right. You got to be positive if you're going to farm for a living.
So, how do you keep yourself? I mean, at this point, you're definitely stuck out of the field, but how do you stay out as April rolls along? You know, it's surely you got to be itching to get some work done.
Oh, I don't know. We've just been working in the shop and tinkering on equipment, getting seed delivered, and we didn't start last year planting until the 18th of April, so a lot can change in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, certainly can. What about issues like weeds and fertilizer? Is it different this year than last year?
Fertilizer's the big thing. There's not much anhydrous been put on anywhere. I think the last meeting I went to said we had 25% of our anhydrous applied that's normally applied in the fall, which that may be a good thing as wet as it's been.
Yeah.
So,
now
definitely going to be a time crunch, though, when it comes time to getting in the field.
Right. Does it change at all what you think about starting with? You always start with corn, or have beans moved their way further up the schedule?
Well, that's been a discussion my son and I have. He's of the younger generation. He says we need to plant beans first. So he may be planting beans and I may be putting anhydrous on. We'll just have to cross that bridge when we get to it. Okay. Just hopefully the bridge don't wash out.
All right. Hang in there, Doug. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
No problem. I wouldn't want to do anything else.
Doug Uphoff, Shelby County Farm Week Crop Watcher. You can read a lot of wet reports in this week's edition of Farm Week. Welcome back to RFD Today. I'm DeLon Sionke. We welcome over the phone down in southern Illinois, Jack Tichenor, host of Illinois Lawmakers. Jack, how are you?
I'm doing fine. Good to be with you and your listeners this morning, DeLoss. The floodwaters, of course, a major concern along the Mississippi River as you start down between Iowa, Missouri, and the Illinois line there.
Boy, we talked to folks at the Army Corps last Friday. Just about every lock and dam in the Rock Island District was either closed or was about to be closed. Are you guys pretty wet down there as well?
Along the floodplains along the Mississippi, you're seeing that, and of course, IDOT closed Route 3 at the at the Jackson Randolph County line a week ago today because of the high water. So it is a major concern, no question about it, and a lot of that water's still got to make its way south from the Midwest.
Yeah. All right, plenty to discuss here now that we are in April and what to be accomplished between now and the end of May in the State House. Let's talk first, though, about the proposals for graduated income tax.
Sure.
Does anything have to be done for that necessarily this session to get it on the ballot for 2020?
Well, I think it needs to be done. I think the general consensus is it has to be done this year. It's a major campaign plank of Governor J.B. Pritzker. The budget that he has in place, his plans for the budget that he has in place for the year that fiscal year that begins on July 1, actually include parts of this, especially with that the pension component of it, the way he wants to put that into effect. He pretty much has to have this. Now, does it have to be this week? There's been a lot of speculation about that, DeLoss, actually. As you know, lawmakers are coming back to Springfield first thing tomorrow morning. They'll be there Tuesday through Friday before they leave for a 2-week break for Passover and Easter, their spring break. A lot of speculation on what the Democratic majorities might do. Will they try to actually pass this thing this week as early as Friday, April 12th? I'm not holding my breath on that for a couple of reasons. Now, the argument goes that if lawmakers don't try to pass the amendment this week, while they're home on that spring break over the next couple of weeks, they're going to hear plenty from opponents of the idea while they're on break, and that might make them less likely to come back and vote for it during the final session, month of the session, which is throughout the month of May, when things are incredibly busy. A vote by Friday might be possible, but I'm not sure that it's really likely at this point. A couple of reasons for that. Published reports in the last few days have indicated the House Democrats are still shy of a 60-vote simple majority to pass the amendment at this point. Now, that's 11 votes short of a 71-vote supermajority that you need to actually get it on the ballot in November of next year. It's not really overly surprising at this point since from what we're able to gather, there hasn't actually been a hard roll call taken on the question at this point. And there's naturally some hesitation among lawmakers about committing this early to what amounts to a tax increase before they actually know the final details. It's generally accepted most of the Democrats in the House and Senate are okay with the idea of putting the graduated income tax amendment on the ballot for next year. But negotiating the exact bracket numbers is harder because that puts them on record actually endorsing a tax increase. The margins amongst the House Democrats pretty narrow. They'd have a 74-vote supermajority there, and it's not a sure bet, though, that everyone in that House Democratic caucus is going to vote for this thing. So if more than 3 members of that supermajority are opposed, the whole thing grinds to a halt, because, as you know, all 41 of the House Republicans are on record against the idea. The Senate Democrats hold a 40-member majority on their side, a supermajority on their side of the rotunda, with 4 votes to spare for a 36-vote supermajority. So it's still early in the process, and I think the only date really at this point that counts is May 31st. That's the scheduled adjournment date.
If 97% will see a decrease out of the proposed plan, then what's the concern about voting for a tax increase?
Well, I think the vote, as you say, 97% will either see a decrease or the rate stays the same for them. I think that what you're already seeing some ads come out blasting targeted House Democrats in certain areas, what would be considered Tier 1 districts that could go either way in a hotly contested election. The opponents are going out and targeting them and saying, "Hey, this is going to hurt you, and we want this representative to know that we're going to put them on notice if they're in favor of this thing." A lot of rhetoric in the whole thing, as you can imagine. Though some of the folks on the opponent side of the ledger on this are calling it a jobs tax. I'm not sure it really meets the strict definition of what a jobs tax is, in that job taxes are generally something that is quite a bit different than that. But we'll see. I think that at this point, the general consensus is the Democrats are on board with this. Speaker Madigan's on board with it. The Senate President John Cullerton's on board with it. I think the thing just has to gel, though, in the next few weeks. But I don't think that Friday, the April 12th, is actually a critical deadline by any stretch. Okay.
Because really, all what goes on the ballot certainly doesn't have to include the whole plan. It's just, we're almost to a break here, but it's just what would the question say if it were to make it to the ballot?
You could actually put the graduated income tax on the ballot as such without actually having the brackets arranged for it. But I think that Governor Pritzker wants to have all that nailed down, and I think the general consensus is they want to get this thing as close to being a finished piece of work as they can by May 31st, so that everyone knows, in fact, what this thing is. And then there's a full year to discuss the thing with the voters ahead of that referendum in 2020.
All right, Jack Titchener, plenty more to come here on a Monday, RFD Today.
With this week's edition of Farm Week, the early word, here's DeLaw Schonke.
A persistent wet weather pattern in March left Illinois soils saturated. Farmers may need to be patient as the Climate Prediction Center's forecast calls for wet conditions to prevail. Learn more in the latest edition of Farm Week. David Zaya is looking for east central Illinois hayfields, pastures, or other grassland sites planted in non-blooming species to include in his monarch study. Find out more about the Natural History Survey plant ecologist's efforts in Farm Week.
No other Farm Weekly in Illinois has as many people on the ground in Illinois covering Illinois agriculture for you with the depth on key issues to help keep you profitable. And don't forget, you can get daily or even more frequent updates online anytime at farmweeknow.com.
RFD Radio Network's Rita Frazier connects rural routes for you. Rita delivers passion and reliable information to listeners on the RFD Radio Network. Her radio career spans close to 3 decades. Here's a bit about her rural roots.
I grew up on a small farm. My job today allows me to connect with people from all walks of life and experience opportunity every day. I get to talk about what I love, farming.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
Does the warmer weather have you itching for a weekend getaway? Take your Illinois Farm Bureau membership savings with you.
Farm Bureau members can save up to 20% at choice hotels, including favorites like Comfort Suites, Sleep Inn, Quality Inn and Suites, with even more to choose from.
Call 800-258-2847 or visit the Choice Hotels website to search all the hotels at once and to make advance reservations.
Contact your local county farm bureau for your discount code number.
Being around too much loud noise like a leaf blower or rock concert can cause permanent hearing loss. And once it's gone, you can't get it back. Hearing loss is the third most common chronic health condition in the U.S. Almost twice as many people report hearing loss as diabetes or cancer. The louder a sound is, and the longer you're exposed to it, the more likely it will damage your hearing. Repeated exposure to noise can cause stress, anxiety, depression, high blood pressure, heart disease, and many other problems. Hearing loss from loud noise at home and in the community can be prevented. Avoid noisy places. Use earplugs, protective earmuffs, or noise-canceling headphones when near loud noises. Keep the volume down when watching TV or listening to music and using earbuds or headphones. Get your hearing checked and ask your healthcare provider how to protect your hearing from noise. To learn more, visit cdc.gov/vital signs.
Welcome back to RFD today on a Monday. I'm DeLoss Yonke, over the phone with Jack Tichenor, who has been part of Illinois lawmakers for more than a quarter century now.
Oh my goodness, you're right. Yeah, I started at the Capitol as State House correspondent in the spring of 1991.
Wow.
And it's been interesting having a front row seat at history.
Sure is.
And we actually return to the air on a weekly basis in the month of May, starting with Friday, May 3rd. We're there every Friday throughout the month of May through adjournment, and then we'll wrap up things the first week of June, presuming, of course, that lawmakers get the whole thing done by the end of June, or by the end of May.
Sure.
I don't want to say the end of June and jinx at this point.
Now, the discussion we were just having is interesting to me because if you have a supermajority environment in Springfield.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're talking about certainly shows that just because there's a supermajority doesn't mean everybody is completely, arm in arm over every issue. There's still some negotiating and wrangling to take place.
Oh, absolutely. It's Speaker Madigan has said he's quoted the old Will Rogers line, "I'm not a member of an organized political party. I'm a Democrat." And same could be said sometimes for the Republicans there at the Capitol. Neither of these parties is strictly monolithic when you think about it. And although there are some areas they can get together on, as we're just talking, the House Republicans have said no way at all to the idea of a graduated income tax at this point. They do have ideological fault lines in both parties in the House and the Senate, and so there is some room for disagreement. There's also the possibility, we were talking about the fact that the 74-seat supermajority amongst the House Democrats may have some folks who may not vote for a graduated income tax. Some of those might be targeted districts where, as we were talking about, Tier 1 districts, when they've counted all the noses on that, you might see some of those lawmakers in at least 3 of those districts get a pass. We'll see. It's still a little early. They haven't really settled down and done what we call a hard roll call vote at this point, but it's still early in the process. Even though the month of May is pretty much programmed to be full steam ahead, a lot of this around the margins can move somewhat as the negotiations continue. When the thing is finally done, you'll see that both houses have to read it into the records there on 3 separate days. So you'll see the things start to pick up momentum when they have the first reading on the bill in one chamber or the other. So still a lot can change between now and the end of May, but I think that's the date we're really looking at, May 31st.
Is that similar then for motor fuel tax and the capital bill?
That's a good question. I don't know that at some point some of these issues might not end up being linked to a certain degree. That has happened in the past. There were some interesting developments on the idea of a capital bill since last time we talked last month. Both the Illinois Chamber of Commerce and the Operating Engineers Local 150 have introduced separate plans for what we call a horizontal capital bill. That's for roads, bridges, mass transit. It's pretty significant, though, when you have the state's leading business group and organized labor supporting the same kind of idea. There are some similarities in the two proposals. They're also looking at ways to fund a vertical capital bill. And by that I mean, building new bricks and mortar, school buildings, buildings on state university and community college campuses, as well as dealing with a huge backlog of deferred maintenance at state facilities. My colleague Mark Maxwell at WCIA-TV had a really good comparison of the competing proposals this week on his Capital Connection program. the way it kind of breaks down is like this. The union's $2 billion proposal is a pay-as-you-go bill that basically pumps money into existing existing projects. The Chamber's bill is a $2 billion proposal. It has a pay-as-you-go component and a bonding component that would allow selling bonds for specific projects. Yes, the state, of course, hasn't had a capital bill since 2009, back in the Quinn administration. That was a $32 billion program. The Department of Transportation says the state needs to spend upwards of $15 billion a year over the next 10 years on roads and bridges, another $30 billion on airports, public transit, and railroads, billions in hundreds of unfunded school construction projects worth around $6 billion still out there waiting to be done. So the need is clearly there. I think both parties recognize that. I think they both want a piece of the action, because when you look at the state of Illinois, all 102 counties, it doesn't matter what district you're in, if you're a Republican or a Democrat, you both need these kinds of projects worked on. We were talking last month about that bridge failure out on Lakeshore Drive and how that snarled traffic. Well, there are bridges all over the state that are in deep trouble because of the deficiencies that have been allowed to rack up over the last few years. So the need is there.
Well, and the need is in each district.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
So that helps. Yeah.
Now, you talked about the motor fuels tax. That's part of both proposals.
Okay.
The tax is currently 19 cents a gallon. That hasn't changed since, I think, 1991.
Okay. Let's bring up the motor fuel tax and what might be done with it then when we come back from this break. Jack Tichenor, Illinois lawmakers on a Monday, RFD Today.
More farm news and information ahead. Stay tuned for more RFD Today here on the Illinois Farm Bureau Radio Network.
Farm Week and FarmWeekNow.com journalist Kay Shipman connects rural routes for you. For 3 decades, Kay has delivered important news. She covers everything from legislative issues to the latest in soil and water conservation. Here's a bit about her rural roots.
I love covering so many aspects of agriculture and providing readers with the facts they need to make better decisions. I also get to work with farmers and meet new people along the way.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
Attention corn farmers. Your corn checkoff dollars are working with the U.S. Meat Export Federation to grow red meat export volumes. Because when we're exporting beef, we're also exporting corn. The beef industry consumes 28% of all corn fed to livestock, plus additional corn in the form of DDGs, a co-product of ethanol production. Now that's what we call working an angle. Your checkoff is working corn from all angles. Because of the Illinois Corn Marketing Board, your profitability is our bottom line. A message from the Illinois Corn Checkoff.
It's where your home is built, your landscape is planted, and your children play. Land is all around us, so Illinois farmers have dedicated years to learning how to best care for it. Today, we're bridging modern knowledge with resources from Mother Nature to promote natural soil activity and choosing crops that enhance soil health. To learn more about conservation efforts, visit ilfarmersconserve.com. Preserving our water, protecting our land, providing our food.
This message brought to you by Illinois Farm Bureau.
Farm, family, food. Those 3 words best describe Illinois Farm Bureau. Farm. For 100 years, Farm Bureau in Illinois has represented and served the men and women who make Illinois one of the top food-producing states. Family. At the heart of rural Illinois are traditional farm families who work together through Illinois Farm Bureau. And food. Farm Bureau families are proud to grow the healthy food they provide their families and yours. Farm, family, food. The heart of Farm Bureau in Illinois.
Warmer weather means a longer honeydew list. Your county Farm Bureau can help you stay on top of your project list and save you money along the way. A Farm Bureau membership offer includes discounts on equipment and supplies from Grainger, plus free shipping on all standard Grainger products. Browse thousands of items from landscaping equipment to power tools. Anything you need to get the job done, Grainger has it. Not a Farm Bureau member? Call us at 309-557-2689. or visit Illinois Farm Bureau online and join today.
All Ag.
All Illinois.
All now.
There are a lot of smartphone apps out there, but do they have what's important to us here in Illinois? The Farm Week Now app does, and it's always at your fingertips. All Ag, all Illinois, and 24/7 where and when you need it for free. Go to your app or Play Store on your smartphone, hit search, type in Farm Week Now, that's one word, and download it today. Brought to you by Illinois Farm Bureau, where we're all about farm, family, and food. Stoller International has 5 full-service Case IH dealerships located throughout central Illinois, carrying a large selection of both new and used equipment, as well as the technology and parts to keep your operation up to speed. Back with Jack Tichenor on RFD today. Jack's the host of Illinois Lawmakers, and we were just talking about the motor fuel tax and where or how much it might be. I assume more than 19 cents. The question would just be how much? Is that the right question?
Yeah, both the proposals we were talking about, the one from the Operating Engineers Local 150 and the State Chamber of Commerce, both of them call for an increase. The way that the union's proposal works, it would double the tax to 38 cents a gallon. There would also be license fees and vehicle registration fees increased under that proposal. That's being handled in the Senate by Democratic Senate Transportation Chairman Martin Sandoval of Chicago. The Chamber's plan, which is being introduced in the House by Chicago Democratic Representative Andre Tapetti, would raise the tax to 44 cents a gallon, starting with a 15 cent a gallon increase July 1, and phasing in the remaining 10 cents over a 5-year period. There would also be higher registration and fee hikes in that package. The Chamber says, for its part, House Bill 3823 would phase out the state's sales tax on motor fuel. That's separate. So consumers, according to the Chamber, would realize a combined 15 cent per gallon motor fuel tax increase. The sales tax swap would eliminate the state sales tax on motor fuel and narrow the price gap between Illinois and neighboring states. It also says it would create a consumer savings when gas rises above $2 a gallon. Both of those ideas, although they have some support, obviously, by 2 of the major players at the Capitol, face opposition from we the people in a lot of cases. Raising the gas tax is enormously unpopular. Last month's Simon Institute poll showed that 61% of voters opposed the idea. Only around 37% actually favored it. So that may not be the way it goes, or it may not be as high as either one of those proposals when this is actually worked out in the long run. There may also be other revenue streams introduced to try and mitigate the impact on vehicle drivers and owners. Of course, there's some discussion we've talked about increasing the state's take on video gaming. That was passed to help fund that last Capitol bill. Now, there's been a lot of criticism that the gaming industry is not paying nearly enough under that formula that they helped pass. So that might be one way of finding more money. Sports betting could be another way. That's depending on some of the estimates you look at, it could raise up to $1 billion a year on sports betting, depending on how that's structured. There is a time crunch involved in that. The supporters on both sides of the aisle would like to see this done by May 31st because you don't want to go past that because you're in danger of losing another construction season during the summer. So I think behind the scenes you're going to see some movement on that. I believe there will be passage of it before May 31st. The final version of it, though, still kind of up in the air, but there's a lot of interest in this, as we've been talking about, DeLoss. House Republicans, Senate Democrats, House Democrats want to see a capital bill because at the end of the day, when you're, building roads, laying concrete and asphalt and all these things, building bricks and mortar projects, You're putting people back to work. They're earning good wages, and they're paying taxes on those wages, and it helps the overall state economy in the state of Illinois. When you think about it, by the time all that supply chain goes back down to the local gravel dealers or what have you, or the person selling the bricks and the concrete and all that, it does help jumpstart the economy. I was talking to former Governor George Ryan about that one time, and his own capital bill, of course, passed right around the time we had the dot-com bubble burst and, of course, the 9/11 tragedies. Ryan made a good case that that actually helped the state of Illinois get through what was a really bad time economically, better than a lot of other states that didn't have those kinds of programs in place.
I don't know how many people drive an electric car in Illinois, but I know how much they would pay in motor fuel taxes. So is there any provision about those who don't actually qualify necessarily, or even drive cars, for example?
My understanding is there would be some fees placed upon them. I'm not too familiar with all the details on that, but you can look them up at the State Chamber's website as well as local operating local 150's website. They go into some detail on how all of that would break down. But part of the problem has been that as we get better mileage with our cars and trucks, less of that money actually goes into the state's coffers to build roads and bridges and repair them.
Is the motor fuel tax just for capital purposes?
The motor fuels tax has some relationship to the General Revenue Fund. There's been talk about actually moving that into a locked box, as I understand it, much like that sales tax is already in a locked box.
Yeah. Gotcha. I was just making sure because, we're talking about graduated income tax, we're talking about motor fuel tax.
That's true.
Yeah, need to make sure where they're all going. Hey, we have one more segment coming up here. We'll get our next break out of the way. We'll have one more segment coming up. We're talking to Jack Titchener, who's based down at SIU and is the host of Illinois Lawmakers. And then it also, as of Monday, we'll talk grains with Dale Dirkholz, senior analyst at AgriVisor. Tomorrow we'll visit with Ellen Ferguson, who writes for Congressional Quarterly. We'll get the D.C. perspective on things. This is RFD Today.
Hi, this is Sabrina Hardy, RFD Business Manager. I want to thank you for listening to the RFD Radio Network, the #1 ag radio network in Illinois. Did you know RFD Radio Network's programming is being broadcast by Rita Frazier and Delosh Yankee with a combined 50 years of broadcasting experience? Join us daily. If you have any questions, email me at chardy@ilfb.org.
If you're in the mood for some sprucing up, you're in luck. From big to small or farm to front yard, your Illinois Farm Bureau member discount from John Deere is ready and waiting to help. It's easy to think green when it's the Rewards Loyalty Program with savings on equipment, special parts, and home and workshop products. Whether your tasks involve mowing, planting, or cleaning, you'll be set for whatever your work requires. All you need to do is sign up, have your membership number handy, and go to johndeere.com/Farm Bureau.
Let's check the markets on the RFD Radio Network. I'm DeLoss Yankee. Pretty quiet today, just a little bit higher for corn. We're up 3 cents for soybeans. May corn up a fraction, 3.62 3/4. The trading range so far today has been all of a penny and a half. July unchanged, 3.71. December up a half, 3.90 1/2. May soybeans up 3.5, $9 2.5. July up 3.915. November up 3, 9.35 3/4. May wheat up 3/4, 4.68 1/2. July up 1, 4.70 3/4. April hogs down 15, 78.87. May down $1.60, 89.40. Last week May gained more than $9 a hundredweight. April cattle down 70, 125.35. June down 32 cents. This is the RFD Radio Network.
40 years of horses, 40 years of legends. It's the Midwest Horse Fair.
Best horse fair in the nation right here.
This is
fun for families because there's so many different aspects of horses that they can see.
And there's top-of-the-line clothing and apparel and boots and hats and ropes and trinkets and gifts. Shopping is off the charts here. I hope you guys are ready because this is going to get wild.
It's the great Midwest Horse Fair.
April 12th through the 14th at the Alliant Energy Center in Madison, Wisconsin. Visit MidwestHorseFair.com for more.
Welcome back to RFD today. I had a friend tweet yesterday. Tweet read, "Take a deep breath outside tonight. It finally smells like spring." So I went out and took a deep breath and spent the rest of the time sneezing. So, yes, spring certainly feels as if it is here. So Jack Titchener is here with Illinois lawmakers. We talk on a regular basis about goings-on at the Capitol. You alluded to a poll that Paul Simon Public Policy Institute had. And that was regarding the motor fuel tax, just any increase, is that right?
Basically, that's what it said, that they've long opposed that. That thing hasn't really moved since, 1991, but the longitudinal data over time shows that people don't like raising that. And that's interesting. That's kind of troubling because if they're really looking at hiking that as much as the two groups are talking about, that may be a problem. So I think there's still time to talk about looking at other potential revenue streams. There's some discussion about that going on behind the scenes, I'm sure. So I wouldn't literally take those figures exactly to the bank at this point. There's still time to work on finding other ways of making this happen. I think the willpower is there to do it, and I think the fact that the state's largest business group and one of the largest labor unions in the state, though, are kind of on the same page, trying to work at the problem from different directions, tells you that they may actually get something done by the end of May. We were talking about that poll. I helped work on that while I was interim director there a couple of years ago, and it's fascinating in terms of mining data from it. We were talking about the graduated income tax idea a little earlier. Well, voters, according to the poll, favor that by a 2-to-1 margin. 67% said they favored a graduated tax plan, where tax rates would be lower for lower income taxpayers and higher for those on the upper income scale. Just under a third, 31%, opposed the plan. And according to the poll, the plan received high levels of support across all three major geographic areas in the state of Illinois. The highest level of support came in the city of Chicago. Voters in suburban Cook and the Collier County supported the plan by 68% to 31%. 60% of downstate voters supported the idea, while 37% opposed it. In Chicago, it was as high as 74% in support of that. In terms of the partisan breakdown, not too surprising there. 88% of Democrats and 65% of independents favored the plan. 55% of Republicans opposed it. 43% supported the plan. Only 10% of Democrats opposed it. 31% of independents opposed it as well. And when asked about a more specific plan that was promoted by Speaker Madigan some time back, increasing the income tax by 3% on incomes over $1 million a year, 71% of voters statewide liked the idea. 27% were opposed to it. So there is considerable support on that. John Jackson, who is one of the designers of the poll, said the results are really kind of a benchmark about where the public stands at the outset of what's going to be a very contentious campaign for and against that graduated income tax.
By the way, did you say at one point that it could have been estimated up to $1 billion? Did you say billion with a B, just on sports gambling?
That was one. It depends on how you do it. There's the chief sponsor in the House, Mike Zalewski, has put out 4 different ideas on how that could be done, but depending on how you do it, it's going to run into several hundreds of millions of dollars, depending on the final structure of that proposal. But Illinois definitely wants to get on board with that. After last year's Supreme Court ruling that cleared the pathway for sports gambling, Illinois wants to be in on that as early as they can be, because other states are stepping up their own efforts of doing the same thing.
That seems like a pretty large number, whatever that is. It seems like a large number to bank on.
Well, yeah, and you have to be careful on that because some of the estimates that other states used in building their own revenue estimates on this have fallen short of those targets. So you have to, go into this with a little bit of skepticism and an abundance of caution because they don't always, the revenue estimates don't always match what the actual take is at the end of the day. But it's thought to be a substantial amount of money for the state of Illinois. We have nearly something like 12.8 million residents. People are doing this sort of thing around the water cooler at the office or the coffee maker, and they're doing that anyway, and the state wants to get in on the action.
Well, yeah, I can understand that. I wonder if we still have 12.8 million residents. But yeah, I'm sure it's still pretty close to that number. The decline isn't going that quickly.
It wouldn't be me, but I have enough friends who are trying to figure out their bracketology. This time of year and during as March Madness just hit, and of course the Final Four and all that. You know what's going on.
Right.
The question is, how do you get to get a piece of the action?
Right. And how much do you legalize in a short period of time? I assume that's still part of the discussion.
Right. And, expanded gaming is part of the revenue estimates the governor is looking at in his budget proposal, as well as the popularity amongst the public of legalizing recreational marijuana and regulating it. One of the findings of that Simon poll about 2 weeks ago was 66% of the folks either favored or strongly favored taxing and regulating recreational marijuana, and that's held fairly close to those margins for the last couple of years. So there's strong support for it. We know that Speaker Madigan is for the idea in the House, and it's just a matter of what the final form that bill takes. There is some opposition, of course, to it, as you might imagine, from chiefs of police. So there are some in the African-American religious community who are on the record against it. And so a lot of these things have to be taken into account before a final vote is taken. There's a proposal, of course, that we've seen built out by Senator Heather Stearns of Chicago and Representative Kelly Cassidy of Chicago that pretty much lays a framework for this, but there are other ideas on how it might be accomplished, and I'm sure that we're going to hear more about that. People are still, the supporters of the idea are still talking about this in ongoing discussions at the Capitol, so we'll see how this shakes out in the next few weeks.
All right. Good to talk to you, Jack. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you in May, I'm sure.
Always a pleasure. Good to be with you, sir.
Thank you. Jack Tichenor, Illinois lawmakers. By the way, opening day at Wrigley Field, one of the new menu items is something called short rib disco fries in a helmet. I don't know what that costs, but I think it would be worth purchase. Also something with pork tenders, a Japanese barbecue, and house-made chips in a bag. That sounds like a pretty good way to spend the day. More to come on RFD today. Let's check livestock markets on the RFD Radio Network. I'm DeLoss Yankee. Illinois direct hog market finished the week steady to firm last week from $46 to $56 a hundredweight. Sow market also firm, $36 to $46 for lightweights, $42 to $50 a hundredweight for heavyweights. Informa has predicted that prices for pork are expected to rise 20% this year due to the decimation of the Chinese pig population because of African swine fever. They expect pork exports to go up 20% in 2019 as demand for pork rises amid the staggering losses of pork supplies elsewhere. Hog prices have already been rising. The June CME contract has gained 14% since the start of the year, and about 1,500 head are expected for special feeder sale this Thursday at Fairview Sale Barn. DeLoss Yankee, RFD Radio Network.
How do people benefit from raising livestock here in Illinois?
Rich Giebert, Illinois farmer, president of the Illinois Farm Bureau.
Well, growing up on a livestock farm was always interesting, and I enjoy it more today than I did back then. But it did give me the opportunity to have a good work ethic, learn to get up in the morning. And you know, that was difficult during my senior days at high school and college days. I had a tendency not to go to bed at a respectable hour. But no, it was always enjoyable on the farm and getting up before daybreak and milking the cows and getting the chores done and then go about the rest of the day's business.
Illinois Farm Bureau, along with beef, corn, milk, pork, and soybean associations, make up the Livestock Development Group, supporting the Illinois livestock sector. For more information, check out illinoislivestock.org.
Welcome back to RFD Today on Monday. I'm DeLoss Yankee with Agrivisor Senior Analyst Dale Dirkholz in studio.
Bomb Cyclone 2.
Oh, my gosh, this thing coming.
You see the one.
Oh, my goodness. The Dakotas, the rain amounts that could come to northern Iowa, Minnesota, all that sort of thing. This looks, especially given the time of year, this looks horrible.
You know what market to watch the most?
What's that?
Or I should say, you know what particular commodity will be affected the most?
Spring wheat.
Feeder cattle.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Bad time of year to have huge blizzard like this when you're dropping new calves on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it potentially can increase calf losses there, you know. I mean, you know, the producers out there have had time to get ready and prepare and, you know, try to get some. But if you got animals that are out on wide open range, there's just, you know, there isn't much you can really do with it.
Even Jim Cantori was tweeting about what's coming. It looks like just a tremendous amount of snow, and in other places, tremendous amount of rain. It looks like we're going to miss most of that. We may get something on Thursday out of this deal. But
yeah, we'll get rain and stuff. Originally, the track for this whole storm was further south, though.
Mm-hmm.
We were going to be in the rain, maybe a rain-snow mix. But no matter, one thing to keep an eye on, scary thing about it is events tend to come in threes.
Huh.
Isn't that a happy thought?
Would this be number 2 then?
Uh-huh.
So one in March, one in April, and gosh, I don't know what the third one is.
No, we've had snow as late as the first part of May up in northern Iowa. So, you know, there's a possibility. I don't know how this stretches out. The whole forecast, though, as we went home Friday, and I tend not to pay much attention to the long-range weekend numbers, but I mean, you know, Friday when we went home, we were cold, I mean really cold, for a lot of the Midwest, and above normal precip, and that just doesn't argue we are going to plant this crop very soon, very fast at all, because now you're stretching into maybe the very latter parts of April now. Places like here and further south, maybe they can get some stuff done, but the heart of the Corn Belt today is Des Moines, Iowa.
Sure. Right, yeah, based on, well, and the Dakotas, according to the Planning Intentions Report, the Dakotas were up 1.6 million acres. On corn. So you talk about the corn shifting to the north and west, that puts Des Moines.
It's been going that way for quite a long time.
So yeah, National Weather Service says by Tuesday a storm system is expected to develop over the Rockies and then rapidly intensify across the central and northern plains. Heavy snow, heavy rainfall, strong winds, and flooding.
Yeah, I saw some South Dakota snow forecast up to 18 inches.
We'll get is today the first NASS, like crop progress and condition type of reports? Is that
No,
today?
we actually had one last Monday.
Okay.
We had one last Monday. We got a national
That's
winter.
right.
We got winter wheat ratings on a national basis. Then you have to go, there are a couple other things that you get, but as far as, your listeners are concerned, you have to go into selected states and kind of pick up things like corn planting and stuff down in the south.
Last year, on the report around April 22 or 23, Illinois was only at 4% complete for corn planting. And then 3 weeks later, it was 74. So with asking that question, then, given what we have weather coming up here and it doesn't look like we're going to get much field work done in the next week to 10 days, then the corn and soybean markets don't necessarily have to react to low planting numbers at this point.
No, and it's still early. It's early April at this point. But if we get into the 20th of April and we haven't done much and the ground's still wet, what a lot of people in the trade, they just kind of like, we can plant this crop fast. Well, they ought to go out and talk to people who lived on the Iowa-Minnesota border last year. They didn't get a crop planted fast. And everybody's going, we got this huge equipment. But if you're wet,
right,
you have a lot more risk running at night, because you cannot see in a field what is wet and what is not as easily as you can during daylight. So, you kind of cut back maybe on your hours of operation a little bit. And the other thing that you deal with, you ever get a big planter stuck?
I haven't.
Yeah, it's not fun.
I'll bet not.
And they're expensive today. They're not cheap either. So you're a lot more careful, a lot more cautious. And then there's the other factor that, a lot of the planters that we work with today have electronic sensors and stuff on them. And, if they get wet or a little bit of mud on them, they don't work either.
Just the notion about planting wet also doesn't, plant in the dust, your bin will bust.
Yeah, the other side doesn't always work.
The other side doesn't seem to work that way either.
Well, it's more variable.
Yeah.
And you look at last year, and what happened, we basically planted in a fairly tight window, especially the eastern corn belt. Western corn belt was a little bit more drug out in some spots. But look at the yield result we got at the end. It was a normal, maybe a little bit better than normal. We didn't have that bin-busting 180-plus national yield in the game. We also had good crops down in the south in places last year, too. They're struggling to get stuff in the ground in some places. It's gone okay, but they aren't getting stuff in the ground real early, and now they're somewhat shut down.
Yeah. So here we are, early April. What do I do with my old crop corn?
I think at this point, today, tomorrow is going to be kind of stuck because of the USDA numbers tomorrow, although I don't think there's going to be any big repercussions there. I'm still a proponent, at this point, hang on, see what happens here. The argument is things should improve, and technically as well as fundamentally.
Yeah, either delayed or not, just usually there's some sort of spring rally.
And the market's up today.
Hey, there we go. Dale Dirkholz, Senior Analyst at AgriVisor. I'm DeLoss Yankee saying watch your ends. We'll be back in studio tomorrow.
More farm news and information ahead. Stay tuned for more RFD Today here on the Illinois Farm Bureau Radio Network.